Hi students, so I don't know exactly how long this is going to take, but I thought that I would do the first tutorial with you, and if this works well and you say, hey, I like this, then I'll keep doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to chapter 2, or week 2. I'm going to open up read chapter 1, and then you go to sorry, that's not the tutorial. Let me go back here. That's the review. The tutorial is right here where it says complete the tutorial. Usually these are 3 points, even though it says more. Just do your very best on them. And you can always follow along and do it with me like this. So if you have a second screen, or if you can want to split screens and do this, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read these out loud and kind of do them. So it says, read the phrase below and click on the answer that best completes the sentence. According to chapter 1 of They Say, I Say, they say is the response an audience has to a writer's argument, a summary or quote of the views of others to which a writer responds in their own argument, right? Sounds pretty good. The main point a writer puts forward. So I'm going to guess this one, right? Nice job. So then we're going to move forward. It is important to begin your argument with what others are saying. They say, in order to give readers a sense of the larger conversation your claim is responding to. True, right? We got it. And then I'm going to go ahead and just read this essay along with you guys, right? It says, banning plastic bags is great for the world, right? Not so fast. By Ben Adler. Like cigarettes, plastic bags have recently gone from a tolerated nuisance to a widely despised and discouraged vice. Last month, the New York City Council passed a 5-cent per bag fee on single-use bags handed out by most retailers. So we know, right, last month, we know that this doesn't mean that this is a recent article, right? This happened a few years back. 2 weeks ago, the Massachusetts State Senate passed a measure that would ban plastic bags from being dispensed by many retail businesses and require a charge of 10 cents or more for a recycled paper or reusable bag. The Massachusetts proposal may not become law this year, but it is the latest sign that the plastic bag industry is losing this war. Already in Massachusetts, 32 towns and cities have passed bans or fees. So have at least 80 localities in California, including the city of Los Angeles and San Francisco, plus cities and towns in more than a dozen other states and more than a dozen other countries. So now we kind of know the situation, right, of what's happening. The adverse impacts of plastic bags are undeniable. Okay, so we know that that's going to be one of the main ideas here. And that's sort of what they say, right? Everybody does kind of say that they're undeniable. When they're not piling up in landfills, they're blocking storm drains, littering streets, getting stuck in trees, and contaminating oceans, where fish, seabirds, and other marine animals eat them or get tangled up in them. A longtime plastic bag adversary, Ian Fraser, recently reported in the New Yorker, and here's another they say, right? Here's a they say. So let's go ahead and look, here's what they say. In 2014, plastic bags were the 7th most common item collected during the Ocean Conservancy's International Coastal Cleanup, behind smaller debris such as cigarette butts, plastic straws, and bottle caps. The New York City Sanitation Department collects more than 1,700 tons of single-use carry-out bags every week and has to spend $12.5 million a year to dispose of them. Bans kept this litter off at the source, right? So here's another they say. Oops. Let me, sorry. And it asks you in the tutorial to highlight. In San Jose, California, a plastic bag ban led to an 89% reduction in the number of plastic bags winding up in the city's storm drains. Fees have a smaller but significant effect. Washington, D.C.'s government estimates that its 5-cent bag tax has led to a 60% decrease in the number of bags being used, although that figure is contested by other sources. So we have this big they say, right? He puts forth the argument for the other side, right? Is plastic really worse than paper? So now we're kind of flipping it. We're going to actually ask those questions. But advocates of these laws and journalists who cover the issue often neglect to ask what will replace plastic bags and what the environmental impact of that replacement be. People still need plastic bags to bring home their groceries, and the most common substitute, paper bags, may be just as worse, depending on the environmental problem you're most concerned about, right? So here's his I say, right? This is what the author says. Maybe plastic bags or maybe paper bags are just as bad. That's leading to a split in the anti-bag movement. Some bills, like in Massachusetts, try to reduce the usage of plastic bags as well as plastic, but still favor paper. Others, like in New York City, treat all single-use bags equally. Even then, the question remains as to whether single-use bags are necessarily always worse than reusable ones. Studies of bags' environmental impact over the life cycle have reached widely varying conclusions. Okay, so here's a they say, right? And I'm not really using these colors in any particular order. Some are funded by plastic industry groups like the ironically named American Progressive Bag Alliance. Even studies conducted with the purest of intentions depend on any number of assumptions. How many plastic bags are replaced by one cotton tote bag? If a plastic bag is reused in the home as a garbage bag in the bathroom waste bin, does that reduce its footprint by eliminating the need for another small plastic garbage bag? If your chief concern is climate change, things get even muddier. Okay, so here he has another I say right here, right? So here's an I say. I think I was doing pink. One of the most comprehensive research papers on the environmental impact of bags, published in 2007 by an Australian state government agency, found that paper bags have a higher carbon footprint than plastic. That's primarily because more energy is required to produce and transport paper bags. People look at paper and say it's degradable, therefore it's a much better for the environment. But it's not in terms of climate change. It's not in terms of climate change impact, says David Tyler, a professor of chemistry at the University of Oregon, who has examined the research on the environmental impact of bag use. So here is another they say. Here's David Tyler's they say. The reasons for paper's higher carbon footprint are complex, but can mostly be understood as stemming from the fact that paper bags are much thicker than plastic bags. Very broadly, carbon footprints are proportional to the mass of an object, says Tyler. For example, because paper bags take up so much more space, more trucks are needed to ship paper bags to a store than are needed to ship plastic bags. Looking beyond climate change, still, many environmentalists argue that plastic is worse than paper. And so here's another they say, right? So here's a they say. Climate change, they say, right? Here's an exact they say, isn't the only form of environmental degradation to worry about. Paper does have its own environmental consequences in terms of how much energy it takes to generate. Acknowledges Emily Norton, director of the Massachusetts Sierra Club. The big difference is that paper does biodegrade eventually. Plastic is a toxin that stays in our environment, marine animals ingest it, and it enters their bodies and then ours. Some social justice advocates who work in low-income urban neighborhoods or communities of color also argue that plastic bags are a particular scourge. A lot of the waste ends up in our communities, says Elizabeth Yempierre, executive director of Uprose, an environmental and social justice-oriented community organization in Brooklyn. Plastic bags not only destroy the physical infrastructure, she says, referring to the way they clog up storm drains and other systems, they contribute to emissions. And she points out that marine plastic pollution is a threat to low-income people who fish for their dinner. So many frontline communities depend on food coming from the ocean. That's why her group supported New York's bag fee, even though it is more of a burden on lower-income citizens. And so actually, Here's their they say. Right. Let's see, a single mom or someone working two jobs is more likely to have to do her shopping in a rush on the way home from work than to go out specifically with a tote bag in hand. But for Uprose, that concern is outweighed by the negative impacts of plastic bags on disadvantaged communities. Increasingly, environmentalists are pushing for laws that include fees for all single-use bags, and that requires bags to be made with recycled content, which could lower their carbon footprint. The measure now under consideration in Massachusetts, for example, would mandate that single-use paper bags contain at least 40% recycled fiber. That's the percentage the Massachusetts Sierra Club has advocated for at the state level and when lobbying for municipal bag rules. And now we know we're going to switch again, right? Back, it's complicated. But what if reusable bags aren't good either, right? So we're asking the question, and we kind of get that might be this person's they say. Or I say, I'm sorry. As the Australian study noted, a cotton bag has a major environmental impact of its own. Only 2.4% of the world's cropland is planted with cotton, yet it accounts for 24% of the global market for insecticides and 11% for pesticides, the World Wildlife Fund reports. A pound of cotton requires more than 5,000 gallons of water on average, a thirst far greater than that of any vegetable and even most meats. And cotton, unlike paper, is not currently recycled in most places. The Australian study concluded that the best option appears to be a reusable bag, but one made from recycled plastic, not cotton. Right, so actually here's another they say, because that is their determination. A substantial shift to more durable bags would deliver environmental gains through reductions in greenhouse gases, energy and water use, resource depletion, and litter, the study concluded. The shift from one single-use bag to another bag may improve one environmental outcome, but be offset by other environmental impacts. But studies conducted in Australia and Europe have limited 15 applicability in the U.S., particularly when you're considering climate impact, because every country has a different energy mix. In fact, every region of the U.S. has a different energy mix. Sorry, that makes sense. There is no easy answer, says Eric Goldstein, a New York environment. So here's another they say. New York City environmental director for the Natural Resources Defense Council, which backed New York City's bag fee. There are so many variables. Here's just one tiny example. Does the paper for paper bags come from a recycled mill on Staten Island or a virgin forest in northern Canada? As far as I know, nobody has done the definitive analysis, which would necessarily need to have a large number of caveats and qualifications. Also, this question is something like asking, would you prefer to get a parking ticket or a tax assessment? It depends on the specifics, but it is better to avoid both whenever possible. Goldstein is confident that if people switch to reusable bags, even cotton ones, and use them consistently, that will ultimately be better for the environment. The ideal city bag policy would probably involve charging for paper and plastic single-use bags, as New York City has decided to do, while giving out reusable plastic bags to those who need them, especially to low-income communities and seniors. Those crunchy rich should already have more than enough PBS or tote bags from PBS and Whole Foods. The larger takeaway is that no bag is free of environmental impact. Okay, so here's his I say, right? Whether that's put this. So here's his I say. I think I was kind of putting that in pink. Whether that's contributing to climate change, ocean pollution, water scarcity, or pesticide use. The instinct to favor reusable bags springs from an understandable urge to reduce the chronic overconsumption, but the bags we use are not the problem. Let me kind of erase this. Eat one less meat dish a week, and that's what will have a real impact on the environment, says Tyler. It's what we put in the bag at the grocery store that really matters, right? Okay, so there is my highlighting, and here's kind of an example of how they did it. I kind of did it with the different they says. All right, let's continue. Okay, question 1. Answer the questions to show that you recognize how Adler connects his argument to what others are saying. And the cool thing here is that, let's say you didn't read the text or you don't remember from the text, you can actually click right here and it will show you the text here that you have. And I believe if you have trouble with the question, it'll also go back to the actual chapter in the textbook, okay? So in banning plastic bags is great for the world, right? Not so fast. Does Adler describe a larger conversation that he responds to within his argument? In other words, does Adler include a they say? Absolutely, right? We know he did. Yes, Adler includes what one other writer says in the topic. No, we know it's not no. So yes, Adler includes what several others are saying. And look, right here, when you get the answer, it says you can go back to page 20. And you can actually sort of read along with the chapter right here as you go. So if you need to kind of go back to it, right? And it says Adler's a good example of an argument that is clearly connected to a larger conversation. Starting with the New York City Council and moving on to the New Yorker Magazine, a University of Oregon professor, and the Massachusetts Sierra Club, among others, Adler introduces several different points of view on the topic of banning plastic bags. Views he comments on in his own argument. So he shows that they say and then comments on it. It's multiple. So you might want to kind of put this essay in the back of your mind, because essay number 2, your second one, is going to be very similar to this. Okay. So, and then we can review the reading if we need to, but we're not going to. Adler gives context for his argument by including what others are saying on the topic. In doing so, he makes it clear to readers how his argument fits into a larger conversation. Click the passage in Adler's essay below where he presents a they say. Okay, so the adverse impacts of plastic bags are undeniable. While they're not piling up in landfills, doesn't let me go there, and storm drains, right? As long as plastic bag adversary Ian Fraser recently reported, a long time, plastic bags were the 7th most common item collected. Is that a they say? I don't think so. Last month, New York City Council passed no, it's kind of a fact. Advocates of these laws and journalists who cover this issue often neglect to ask. It's not a they say? Okay, maybe I'm missing this whole thing. Let's go ahead and click on this to see. Oh, okay. So here we go. Adler's article is about the challenge of finding an environmentally friendly alternative to plastic shopping bags. He begins by describing some of the actions taken by governments all over the United States. They say he's responding to its argument. Okay. Last month, New York City Council passed a 5-cent. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click on this, but I don't think so. It says, yeah, okay. Still, many environmentalists argue, well, absolutely, right? We know that the environmentalists are arguing, that's definitely it. Okay, nice job. The subject of Adler's article is the move to replace plastic shopping bags with environmentally friendlier alternatives. He begins to describe several examples of actions taken by state governments to reduce the use of plastic bags. How does he respond to these efforts? So, and banning plastic bags, not so fast. weighs in on the ongoing conversation about replacing plastic bags with environmentally friendly alternatives. Here we go, disagrees, agrees, or both agrees and disagrees that banning plastic bags is a simple solution. So he definitely disagrees. Right? Let's see if we put agrees and disagrees. Oh, you have not yet completed this question? Where did I miss that? Okay. Well, I guess that oh, he agrees that banning plastic bags is a simple solution. Sorry. No? Okay. Right, so he both agrees and disagrees, but okay, so I didn't particularly like that question there because it says he agrees or disagrees that banning plastic bags is a simple solution. Well, it's not a simple solution. That wouldn't be the way that I wrote it. So as you can see, even an instructor sometimes is not really clear on the question. Okay. Question 4: Which of the following statements is an appropriate summary of they say that Adler presents and responds in his essays? Let's see. They say paper bags are a better choice because they biodegrade in the environment. Yeah, that is one of them. Okay, so yes, Adler includes several examples of the they say, right? Plastic is a toxin, etc. I know I'm not done yet. They say plastic grocery bags are among the most common pollutants found in the ocean. No, it's kind of just a fact, right? No? Okay, well, where's the other ones? It's also a they say? Okay. All right. I was thinking that was just a fact, but I could see how they could say that's a they say for sure. Correct so far. Let's continue. Let's see. Think about how you would enter the conversation about the environmental impact of shopping bags by responding to the question below. Write a response and practice connecting your ideas to the larger conversation by including they say. Try using a template from the drop-down menu to help you get started connecting your argument to the larger conversation. At least 2 to 3 sentences explaining your view. Okay, so here's the question. What is the best way to protect the environment when we shop? Do you agree with Adler's view that what we buy is more important than what we carry in it? What answer would you propose in this environment? So I'm going to look at some of the templates. When it comes to the topic of blank, most of us will readily agree that. Where this agreement usually ends, however, let's see. Whereas some are convinced that in the discussions of what we buy, one controversial issue has been, while they rarely admit as much, blank is often taken for granted. Yeah, but I actually agree with it. So do you agree with Adler's view that what we buy is more important than what we carry in it? What answer would you propose to this environmental problem? In discussions of one controversial issue has been. I'm going to go ahead and go with this. Okay, so in the discussions of plastic bag, bans, one controversial issue has been the environmental impact of what we put in our shopping bags, right? On one hand, some argue, I'm going to just say some, even though I don't want to, because I don't want to go back to the actual text, but I'll just go to some argue, and I'll change that, plastic bags we want to talk about environmental impact on what we put in plastic bags can help, bans can be one step in helping the environment. On the other hand, I believe that what we put into our bags is definitely more important. Although I agree, with banning bags, I think that advertising, oops, what did I spell this wrong here? I think it's advertising. Yeah, I think that advertising and promoting meatless days of the week would be a much better way to help solve the climate crisis. Many politicians are afraid, so this is kind of like my say continue, are afraid to encourage meatless days, or just, sorry, encourage with an E, in fear of upsetting the beef industry or big agriculture, I'll just say big agriculture. But in order to make real progress in the climate emergency, right, we must encourage real change, right? Like consuming less meat. Okay, so this is just my thoughts on this, right? I can preview a response if I want to. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. You may want to copy this. I'm actually going to copy it, and then I'll just open up a Google Doc and put it in there just so that I have it in case I need it. I was thinking about doing a discussion on something like this, so you may want to have that so that if you ever if you write a paper on this or you use it for your summary, you have what you wrote on this, okay? So I always think, or take a screenshot. Any of those things are fine. And now if I can find what I did with that, oops, here it is. No. What did I do with it? Oh, they say, here it is. No. Where's my thing? Chapter. Is it here? Is it here? No. Where are you? Oops, sorry guys. Where did my, oh, okay. Oh yeah, I put it in between there. Sorry about that. Okay, so like I said, these are going to be really, really informal, and sorry I did not close my other tabs and stuff as I should, but I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and this is finished. You can actually take the survey if you so choose, but that's kind of what I wanted to do with the tutorials. In the future, if you liked this, go ahead and leave me a comment somewhere or send me a message say yes, please keep doing the tutorials, or no, please don't do the tutorial video. But I was thinking about doing this live and then recording it and putting it up there, so if people want to drop in and do it with me, like right there on the spot, we can, or not. But also you should know, like, you can keep trying on this. I made mistakes. I don't always know exactly what they want in this. So it's really just to kind of expand our knowledge and kind of like get some readings under our belt. All right. So good luck, and I will see you online.